Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be talking about backsliding. Backsliding means you're doing things without the full integrity of your own being. But this show is also about knowing your true self and speaking from your true self. Many times people will make the mistake of not speaking up or speaking out when they should. And these types of instances can cost you greatly and wind up being very expensive in the long run, costing you time and money. But if you go back into your earliest memories and recall from your earliest memories when you actually said no. No was actually one of the first words that many of us said as children. No. The problem nowadays is that people get so used to saying yes when they should say no for even the smallest things. What I'm advocating is not being a complete hard ass. No, I'm simply saying that stand your ground and speak from your truest self. It will not be the most popular, but it doesn't matter because you're staying true to yourself. But going back into your earliest memories, you'll find instances of recalling things that you remember when you should have said no, but you said yes instead.
Most of my earliest memories, unfortunately, were like traumatic experience. I remember when my dad had dropped me, he had crushed my ankle. My point of reference was a TV show, Laverne and Shirley. And they had this episode where they were like in heaven and hell. And so my ankle gets crushed. They rush me to the hospital and I'm crying. And I just remember looking up, seeing all these white rooms of white people. I thought I was in heaven. So I'm like, Mama, what are you doing in heaven? She's like, what are you saying? You in heaven? 'Cause I'm attributing that ain't no black people in heaven and the angels are white and all this. That's how dumb I was. I was brainwashed early on.
How old were you?
I was 2. My parents were still married, so I was either 2 or less. And I remember that far back. I remember because the show Laverne and Shirley, look that up. That's an old show. And I remember
they have
different
reruns for a long time.
Of course. But see, this is pre-syndication. You know, we weren't syndicating everything back then. We were still watching.
No, that's not true because there were shows like The $6 Million Man had gone off the air, like, you know, long before, you know what I'm saying, we were even in kindergarten and shit. And so I would watch The $6 Million Man and The Incredible Hulk. And it was,
I love that show.
You know, reruns and shit. You know what I mean?
And I just remember that, like you said, a placeholder. I remember falling. I'm gonna tell you how long ago this was. My dad was talking to, oh boy, he used to do the State Farm insurance on Ames, and while they were talking, I had this little chickie, and I rolled it to the steps and rolled down my steps, and I remember him jumping up, running to come get me. I remember going down the steps a bunch of times, hitting stuff. My house in Tennessee, I remember going down the steps, but I did the same behavior. I just liked pushing shit to the edge, and so I remember falling down stuff. I remember those different situations. So, and I know for a fact that my dad was there. It had to be, I was either 2 or less. I remember my pets. I remember I had 4 goldfish, 2 parakeets. I had a German Shepherd. You know, I remember all those different things. So, the point I'm making is that I don't know what we were eating back then. You know, I don't know what our parents was feeding us, but our minds formed very early. Our consciousness came around very, very early on. I talked to my sister. She don't remember shit before 5, and I'm like, and the reason I say that because we literally, it's not an argument, but we had a talk about our father, and she said, you know, you had him longer than I did. Like, who told you that? She's like, yeah, no, he was with you longer. I said, no. He left me when I was 2 and moved around the corner with you. He was with you until you was 4. You know, you had him for 4 years. I only had him for 2 years. You just believe because my parents were married that I got a better story than you. I don't. He's a piece of shit to both of us. You know, and she wasn't even looking for sympathy. She was just saying, that was her reality.
Remembered.
I'm like, nah. Yeah, I said, no. You know, you had him longer than I did. He just wasn't a very good dad. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because, like I said, you know, me and you were talking about, oh, ain't no mom around, ain't no dad around. I'm like, that ain't the reason. You know, I think because we were still held accountable in the 80s, like you said, we were held accountable. We saw people overcoming. And I remember I was trying to tell somebody, like, me and you were joking, but this is a true story. I remember this dude with no arms came to visit us, you know, and we were in grade school. They took us in the gymnasium and they told us all to close our eyes. And you hear this dude drumming, like, and you didn't know what was going on. Like, and open your eyes and you see this motherfucker drumming with his feet. And he mad skills, you know, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. Because they were trying to teach us how to overcome. And, you know, my dumb ass was like, how's he wipe his butt? next thing you know, I'm in trouble because I'm like, well, shit, if this motherfucker is using his feet for
I
everything.
wonder if they still have stuff like that for elementary kids.
That's my point. Is that it's a whole different vibe. When you saw the '90s, you saw the reason I brought up Ricky Lakes and Oprah's. See, we had Phil Donahue. That was different. Phil and Robert Downey Jr.
Okay,
These
this is how this conversation started offline. So we were talking about therapy.
Yes, but
And there's headlines about Marlon Wayans says Will Smith needs therapy. No, the fuck he doesn't. No, he doesn't. No, he needs separation. And but in this conversation, this phone conversation, you and I are talking about this, and you talked about how I dealt with the situation, the loss of somebody that I loved, and you came to see me, and we went and had a good time. And the thing is that we didn't talk. We didn't talk about the problem. Everybody wants to Freud the shit out of problems when Freudism isn't always needed for every fucking thing. Because
he was a fraud too.
Yes, he's a fraud and a freak. But listen, people don't always need therapy. Sometimes people just need healing.
And see, that's what you said.
That is what I needed. Yes, exactly. Everybody doesn't need to talk. Some people just need to just go change their environment or do something they really fucking enjoy with people they give a fuck about.
What you said was people don't need therapy, they need healing.
They need to remember their true self.
Yeah. And so here's how the conversation was about. You was breaking it down, and I was like, what you were saying is the same thing I said, like, don't confuse spirituality for religion. Religion is a tool to get to spirituality, but religion ain't spirituality. And that was the example we gave because we're having a real deep conversation. And what you were saying is that, like, you were saying that we were saying, but you were making it clear, like, the problem with therapy is way too much talking. And that's what happens when you go outside your family or your circle to get therapy. You're going to have to talk because this person don't know you. So this is the only tool they have to decipher what you got going on. The reason I brought that up is because my stepkids would go to therapy and they're lying their asses off. All they wanted was sympathy. They knew if they said certain things, but then after a month or two of talking, then the person would realize, oh, this person is full of shit. You did this, that, and the other. And then when you would hold them accountable, they wouldn't want to go to therapy anymore. So talking is important for therapy, but that's only for somebody who doesn't know you. If you're getting therapy from somebody who grew up with you, whether it's your parents, your cousin, your brother, your sister, your dad, your uncle, your aunt, because black folks, I remember Chris Rock said this, our uncles were responsible for everything. Like, you would literally learn from your uncles. You would spend time from, with my case, my Uncle Greg, and they would talk about shit, talking about going to Africa, you would sit there and experience stuff. And the point I'm making is that sometimes therapy ain't talking. Sometimes therapy is doing something that you're good at, or doing something that you like, or how about doing something that you're not good at, but you enjoy doing. And that little bit of right there, that confidence builder, that it's like a placeholder that sends you back to your childhood, to these memories, and you reboot and you come back to, okay, I'm good now. I'm not saying that therapists aren't good. I'm saying that there's other therapies out there. When you see some of these people, they were doing this rock climbing therapy. Like, they were literally with their therapist, they're rock climbing. It's a rock wall, they're climbing that shit, and they were making breakthroughs. That's because they were doing some gangster shit. You understand? They were doing something that got their juices flowing, that took them to a place of, okay, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm not going to give up on it.
But see, but that's the thing, though. It got you out of your comfort zone. It challenged you, and you were completely present. See, in these moments where you're completely present, it recalibrates.
That one is focused.
It recalibrates your mental state. You know what I mean? It recalibrates your entire MO, because that is what brings you back to the true self. It's like when you get into a situation, you're pushed but then these aren't like, oh, I'm chasing motherfuckers through the woods with guns and shit. No, this is adventurous stuff, things that you enjoy doing.
Sometimes you don't know if you don't know you enjoy them until you try them, but it's doing something that's helping you to grow and heal. And
Okay.
like you said, it's about
You ever
healing.
have
It's
these
not about.
reading rainbow moments? You remember these like reading rainbow moments when you were a
I
kid? What I'm
I love
talking
them.
about. But what I'm saying is like I'm using the term reading rainbow moment, but it's like these things, these moments where you you reach your pure self and you're engaged and you're learning something new and you're having fun. That right there is nestled in the paradise of childhood.
Well, see, learning is such a pure thing, because most of your learning happens as a child. It's such a pure thing, and we long for learning. You spoke about the Electric Company. Electric Company was a show that came on PBS, and they had this guy called Easy Reader. That was Morgan Freeman, and they had Spider-Man back then. So Spider-Man would show up, hit the bad guys with the web, and then teach you a lesson. That's
Right.
how dope this shit was.
But also,
You know,
then you would have LeVar Burton
reading.
on Reading
Yes,
Rainbow. And that's a part of you that is not diluted by anything else. It's respecting your intellect as a young mind and teaching you something.
see, you've been all over the world. I'm only traveled to Mexico. I think I've been to Canada once, but there's a point I'm trying to make. When you read something when you were a kid, when you read about a place as a kid, like I read about I remember Mount Rushmore, and I remember going to visit that shit. That's that reading rainbow moment. That's that moment of discovery, but it ties into something you learn. It's like a cross. It's like a nexus, a crossroads you have an experience, you have learning, you have something
Dude,
that you're putting.
the first
It's
time I jumped out of an airplane, I felt like an action figure come to life.
uh,
That
this is
was
you were He-Man, GI Joe, and Optimus Prime all at
all of
once.
it. All of it. And Thundercats. All of that shit. All of them together. And Dragon Ball Z.
Uh,
Because it was like, yes, this is what I prepared myself for. This is what I always wanted to do. This is what I always saw myself doing. So then when you step through these doors, it's a high five from God, like, yeah, man, keep going. And so it's
it's
a
called
pure,
a self-realizing activity. It brings you
naturally.
close.
And
Yeah,
but it's pure. That's something pure, and that's a reading rainbow moment. That's a electric company moment. You know what I'm saying? Like that's today's special moment. Fucking, you know?
today's special. Oh my God.
That show was so Canadian, dude. It was ridiculous.
I had this hot black chick and this white dude that was a mannequin, and I'm like, man,
And the mouse.
yeah, I would hit that shit. She was stacked,
Oh,
you
dude,
know.
she was bad.
I first crush Maria from Sesame Street because I was in that Puerto Rican shit a long time ago. You know what I'm saying? um,
See, my dad used to get Jet magazine and the Beauty of the Week. And
yeah,
they be in there in the
that's
bathing
real.
suit, and I'm like, bruh, we need to
Yeah,
bring that shit back.
yeah, that nigga real with that. He's not even joking with y'all.
And matter of fact, I think I still got a stack of them at the crib somewhere.
Here's a point that we were making yesterday was that we were seeing these situations that could have been like saved if the man had just spoke up. These are situations where a man is trying to either preserve the relationship but not preserve his peace, and you got to understand there's a difference. And so when the statements was he was raised by a woman, I'm like, that ain't got shit to do with, I was raised by a woman. I'm in the 80s, and we had a lot of homies that were raised just like me, and they all turned out cool. Ain't none of these motherfuckers fugazi. You feel me? Ain't none of these motherfuckers soft. And so I think somewhere in the 80s, and the reason I brought up the Ricky Lakes and his fake therapy shit and the Oprahs is because that was
That
like a
was the
big thing.
intro. That was the
Yeah,
intro to all
that
this
was the
shit.
intro to this shit. Like, drop that zero, get with a hero. And I'm like, yeah, we get it. We saw where men would mistreat women,
But
but
also, she was a prototype for a lot of shit because she had her
yes,
fuckboy Stedman, you know what I'm saying? And her whole situation, like she was the breadwinner and all that. So of course she gonna say all that bullshit. Meanwhile, she going home to old senior fuckboy in the pool house. You know what I'm saying? And she's living that hypocritical life.
it's like I said, there was points to this, and the biggest point was that it wasn't the
And that
fact that they
term
were
came
raised.
from hip hop. Cut that zero, give
Yeah,
it this hero. That came from hip hop. That wasn't from her.
uh, I I just remember hearing that shit on Ricky Lake all the time. But you are right. That is a hip
It's a
hop
hip hop
term. You are
term.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they would say that shit all the time when the man was doing them wrong, and I dig that. She had her moment of awakening, but then all of a sudden later on, very gradual. All these other fucking talk shows fell by the wayside, and Oprah still kept going. That has to be because the message that she was given was not a pro-black message, was not a pro-family message. It was a message of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like submissiveness. Like, okay, you need therapy. Like, but I don't. You need therapy. Like, no, I don't. And that's what she brought her nigga Dr. Phil out. Dr. Phil all of a sudden like became America's therapist. And the only thing I like about Dr. Phil is that
His gun
he be.
collection.
I was gonna say that he be fighting these poor white folks. He don't be having all these crazy poor nigga. It be poor white folks on his show, and I'm like, golly, I feel so much better now. It's like, where you go? Where'd you fight these people? Council Bluffs? You know what I'm saying?
How is
Like,
it that you can be this old and this stupid?
catch me outside, motherfucker, catch me outside. I'm like, thank God she's white. But and like I said, the point is that the whole society took this weird turn where everybody had an excuse, and these excuses were fine, and nobody held you accountable. And you see it all the time when you have these single moms and they have these little boys, and because they feel guilty and they want to buy them Jordans and they want to spoil them, and the first thing out of their mouth is, I'm not going to spank my child. I'm like, how do you know what you need to do to a child before the child gets here? How do you know how to respond to somebody before they're even in your life? And when I say that, they're like, you're mean. Like, nah. I'm like, look, I got multiple kids. I know which one needs spankings and which one needs talking to, and which ones is like. In fact, I saw this reel. I'm looking at Facebook, and it pissed me off because whenever you find one of these reels, I was trying to save it because I was going to send it to you. This dude, I don't know if he's an NBA player or a rapper, but it was Willie D. You could tell because I could tell by the background, and he's like, "Hey man, and the heading was winos discipline their children different." That's the heading. And he's like, man, my dad was a wino. My dad went to work all the time, but my dad was gangster. My dad was a wino. And he was like, my mom could not stand my dad disciplining me and my brother. And he was disciplined. He was spanking us hard or whatever. And so they get into it. And he tells his wife, his mom, like, look, don't come to me. Don't come to me when they go to jail. Don't come to me when they get shot. Don't come crying to me. He said, don't ask me to spend my hard-earned money to get this motherfuckers out of jail. And so he spanked him hard. And mom, she said, I couldn't stand to watch it. So fast forward, he said, later on, I'll become an adult, and all those things happened. Me and my brothers got shot. And he said, I'm talking to my father, and my father explained it to me. He said, do you know why I was like that? He said, you wanted us. He's like, nah. He said, nigga, I know my bloodline. I know my brothers, I know your grandfather, and I know your uncles. I know what it takes. You damn near got to kill one of us to make us recognize some shit. And I was doing what was necessary to keep y'all out of trouble. But your mom couldn't stand, couldn't stand to watch that. And so, but when that nigga said, I knew my bloodline, he understood. People assume because, like I said, he was a wino. Like my Uncle Bussy, he don't talk much. You know what I'm saying? My Uncle Jeff, he would talk, but he also, if you did something that was dangerous, I got whipped with a strap, and nobody was to talk. A strap was a razor strap. This is what you use to sharpen a razor. He only spanked me twice. I got spanked twice by that man. You know why? Because it wasn't necessary to spank me no more. Because I knew if he spoke up, I'm like, oh wait, fuck y'all motherfuckers. I don't know what y'all talking about. But he had two straps. He had a leather strap. He had like a cord strap, and they were used for sharpening different types of razors. So when that motherfucker spoke, E.F. Hutton listened.
That motherfucker was old school. He's shaving with a straight razor.
Yes. So when this man is telling you, I know my bloodline, I know the males in my family, I know what it takes to make us wake up or recognize some shit. But the mom was like, he said, you beat my son too rough. She couldn't stand to watch it. And I'm like, this is some deep shit. And I get it. And so when you got this single girl who had a kid when she was 17, 18, which I'm not dissing you for having a kid early, but when you sit there and say, I'm not going to raise my son the way I was raised. I saw another reel. I'm at work watching reels and shit. I'm working. I saw another reel when this dude was, it sounded like the light-skinned dude, I can't think of his name, but he was interviewing Felicia Rashad. And this looked like pre-Cosby show because this woman was fucking beautiful. She has always had this aura. And he goes, so when you have your kids, times are changing. How are you going to raise your kids differently from the way your mom raised you? And she said, whoa, hold it. I'm not raising my children differently from how my mother raised me. My mother did a wonderful job. She did an amazing job. Well, the times are changing. She said, they ain't changed that much. You're still raising a strong man or woman. And she goes in, she said, my mom used to give us affirmations. You got to remember, Debbie Allen's her sister. So her mom used to give us affirmations, and she remembered two of them. She said, these are two that my mother gave us. And she named one where she said, So the universe is not mean to you. Don't hold a grudge against the universe, and it won't hold a grudge against you. It was some deep shit. And another one she had named, and that right there, this whole idea that our parents raised us wrong, and that you like, okay, yes, if I had good parents, so I had a good mom, excuse me, I didn't have a good father, but I had good aunts and uncles, my grandmother, my grandfather, my Aunt Essie, you'll hear me talk about. So I had good parents. I was blessed. My father wasn't shit. Okay, so what? And so that whole idea that your parents did it wrong. Now, some people might have that might be a legitimate situation where your mom and dad didn't do a very good job, and I'm sorry for you, but that's not my story, okay? And I'm not going to subscribe to that shit. I'm not going to raise my kids different, and I've argued with my wife about the shit. I've said some
Look,
things.
we had examples all through our neighborhoods.
Yes.
Of the right way and the wrong way to raise kids.
Hey, one of my homeboys
across the street from me, every day I had an example of the wrong way to raise kids. On 2 blocks over, we saw the wrong way to raise a kid and the right way to raise a kid on the same street. We had kids that would smell like pee all the time. Okay,
at school,
at school,
like,
smell like pee.
Look, hey, when the homie said the deepest shit, he said, "How did my mom know?" He's like, I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Everybody my mom said wouldn't be shit, ain't shit." Like literally, there are certain kids you would play with. Your mom's like, "Hey, don't be bringing them around the house, or he ain't gonna be shit." And you're like, "How do they know?" That's because your mom knew their parents. And their mom was like, "Hey, that's a second, third generation shithead right there." Like, and you get grown, and that's the motherfucker that's in jail. That's the chick that's in jail. Oh man, she got caught stealing at Walgreens like 19 times. And like, how'd your parents know? Because
but check it out. You may come from good parents, but you may have backsliders in your family. Your father may have 1 or 2 brothers that ain't shit.
Like old boy said, I know my bloodline.
See what I'm saying? So then, like, you have a kid, and you're like, where's this coming from? Oh, it just skipped a generation. You know what I mean?
But your parents recognize shit in you that they from their siblings or your aunts, uncles, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So like your parents be like, you don't like to smoke. I'm like, how do you know? I'm not even old enough to smoke yet, or I'm not even into that shit. And then you realize, man, I started smoking a pipe because my uncles did. I got into that shit. I was just sit there when I first bought my first house. I would sit there, smoke a pipe, read the Bible, and just like drink brandy. I was into, I thought I was Big Willie style. I'm like, but that shit was also a way for me to escape, and I met myself through these different activities, and so, I mean, a lot of that shit is some crazy shit. Like your parents see stuff, and they recognize stuff that you don't know what.
No,
like
motherfucker, you just saw Lord of the Rings. You want to be Gandalf.
That was years later. That's years later. I remember my mom said some shit that pissed every chick I dated off. She was like, man, you don't know what it's like. My mom said when you get married and they say till death do you part, they don't mean you're gonna be with this nigga. They mean that you're gonna have to raise his kid that acts just like a nigga he don't even know. He's like, man, you cut your beard just like a motherfucker, and your dad was you don't even know. Or you act like your dad, and that motherfucker left when you was 2. So your behavior, and so she's telling you like, till death do you part. Nah, that means you have to deal with a nigga's kid that acts just like a motherfucker you can't stand. So, like, goddamn, that's a true story. And so, but you have to understand that you have to learn to avoid those shortcomings. And when your mother or your father or whoever is warning you about this shit, is because they may know some traits in your other parent, and they're like, hey, nah, I gotta fight this. Like, my mom's big on me not drinking because my father's alcoholic. I come from alcoholics on both sides of my family. And she's like, nah, I drink, but she can't stand it. So because she doesn't want me to be an alcoholic, I'm like, well, Mom, this, that, and other. She's like, nah, 24, 25. So then all of a sudden he just went downhill from there. So she's speaking from seeing some shit. She ain't saying it just because it's some kind of after school special, my nigga. It's like, no, I see how this shit can derail you. And many of us got Native American blood in us. Many of us have problems with fire water. So that's some real shit. Like I said, our conversation was about how the fuck do we get here where a man won't speak up and he can see this train going down a bad track, but he, like I said, he don't want to offend his woman. That's how this conversation went. Like, man, all you gotta do is say no, speak the fuck up. But people are afraid to speak up nowadays because they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or they don't want to have an argument. My mom was like, "Hey, nigga, you used to argue with me all the time, so you were henpecked." I'm like, "What?" My mom was like, "Yeah, don't be afraid to argue with your bitch." Like that was a lesson I had. My mom was like, "Nah, the shit you going through, you wouldn't be going through it if you had spoke up, and you know what situation it was. You were there to help me through the shit." So,
But okay, that's relationship stuff.
yeah,
Jobs. Let's talk about jobs for a second. Yo, okay. Settling is a part of this.
yeah. I don't like the word settle down.
But no.
But
But see,
down.
but you have
I'll
to
just say the word settle.
But settling is what happens when you backslide and you don't own up to shit that or face things that aren't up to your standards. For example, man, like I was offered jobs recently that weren't up to my standards, and these people had good intentions. They thought they were offering me something good, but then on the flip side, I'm like, well, you don't think I'm worth much then. You know what I mean? Like this is what you think I'm worth, or that's what you're willing to give me. That's cool. But also understand that your generosity, your offer, thank you for the offer. But at the same time, that is not going to cover my cost of living. So I can't fuck with that, man.
Appreciate you. Holla.
Yeah.
Hey, so I remember, here's how I learned how to say no. I learned how to say no long before it, of course, but I remember going to church and they would always volunteer me for shit. And I was a church secretary in my Sunday school for many years. And so, they would volunteer me for stuff. And I started, like, I told my mom, I was like 11, 12. I don't want to do that. My mom was like, okay, go ahead, say no. so I started saying no. But the one thing she didn't let me do was the Sunday school secretary. She's like, oh, you're going to do that until it's because my mom was guiding me. That looked good on my resume. Like literally when I applied for college, the church gave me a scholarship and I literally put on my resume, hey, church secretary, I handled this, I handled attendance, I counted the money. But when they were trying to make, hey, we want you to be part of this, like I ain't singing for nobody. And so, but my mom said, speak up. They're going to step on you unless you speak up. They're going.
Right there.
Yeah. So you got to say like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm good. But the things that she thought I needed to make me a well-rounded person, like counting the money and working on accounting, which I suck at accounting, but I can count money, but the actual accounting depreciation shit I suck at. But my degree is in economics and finance. That's how I know these things. But it was one of those things where she's like, yeah, this is important to speak up here. But it's much more important that you learn this lesson, and that's a lesson I had to learn too. That these people will make you do shit because you come to church. These other niggas ain't coming. They might pop up on Easter. they can't rely on them. So since they can rely on you, they will push stuff on you that you ain't into. So that's a lesson that I had to learn. Being in a relationship, sometimes you avoid an argument. My mom was like, nah, you don't avoid an argument, especially if it's important. Like some shit ain't worth arguing about. My mom was like, but when it comes to that's nagging. Don't let no bitch nag you. My mom was saying crazy shit.
Sometimes, like, I look at things from a stand-up comedy perspective.
We hold it. This is the
Here we go. Buckle up, motherfuckers. It's about to get crazy. All right. A lot of times when a motherfucker is talking to me and they are coming at me in a way where they don't recognize my power or they are not respecting my energy, I start cutting them down inside quietly first. Like I look at all the weak spots.
I'm dismantling them
mentally. Yeah. Yes, I've dismantled this person mentally. I'm like, Okay, check this out. First off, you shouldn't be speaking with such confidence when you got that kind of chicken neck, okay? Because it betrays this whole aura you're trying to project here. What?
Yeah,
Listen to me, man. Listen.
I see the real you.
I see who you are. I see your drinking habit. I see your lazy eye. And I see all this shit that you're not aware of, or you're looking past, or you're trying to bulldoze your way through. And so when I'm looking at these people and I'm just like breaking them down, and like I find the humor in this person, you know what I'm saying? And I look at this, and then I find like all the weak spots, and then I just lean into these fucking things. So what happens is, like, when I start talking shit to people.
Yes, in my head first.
No, I start in the head first, and then it comes out. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's some real smart aleck type of stuff. But I always read the room first. You know what I'm saying? Because like when you start like throwing wisecracks at a person, if they can take it, then they'll relax, and they'll see that you're not coming at them the same way everybody else is. Like, I don't suck up to people. And because of that, that's why I'll throw in these wisecracks. And
I do it in the boardroom.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So I speak truth to power all the time. Like, just because a person is making more money than me, or they have a position that like grants them more authority over more people,
that's just a title.
None of that shit intimidates me. So when I walk into a room full of people and it's some type of like meeting situation, that's a stage. You know what I'm saying?
The whole world's a stage. Yeah.
100%. But that room is at that moment. And so that room has become a low ceiling nightclub, small nightclub. That's what that place has become. And I just start going in on motherfuckers.
Man,
and I'm like,
every once in a while,
this dude
frustrated
with this fucking this guy over here on my right with the fucking Dr. Hitchcock, Mr. Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock's gut. I'm like, so how many months? When are you expecting?
What did Martin say that one time on Def Comedy Jam? Because Def Comedy Jam opened up a lot of this shit. He's like, this nigga look like a doctor at home inventing dicks.
It's like, dude, like, how you gonna have like swole ass arms, but you got a booty, dude? Like, what?
Oh my God.
Fuck, man? Like, what?
Nigga, how you wipe your ass with arms that big? Nigga, you half-ass wipe. Look. The whole thing is that I'm not tearing anybody down. That's not what we're talking about.
But see, here's the thing though. Comedy is an equalizer. So yes, I use that as a weapon, or like I'm just reaching for the knobs on a fucking stereo, and I'm just turning the knobs to fucking equalize the levels. You know what I'm saying?
And like I said, I'm not trying. See, I'm not ill mannered. I'm not like just trying to hurt you.
No. I'm not being belligerent, but what I'm doing though is that I'm shifting the vibe of the room. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm shifting the power dynamic. But see, sometimes I do. It's the power dynamic, and then sometimes it's the stale energy in the room.
So I wake that shit up.
I'm like, if you walk into like a room full of suits and everybody's all grim, I'm like, okay, looks like everybody had their adrenochrome this morning, and like, motherfuckers are like, what?
Yeah, I disturb the water. Like, look,
I'm throwing stones into the pond.
I remember I was a little kid. I had to be like 4, and my parents got divorced, so we're in Tennessee, and my mom was trying to open me up to shit. So she took me to a baptism, and they baptisms out there. They have them in the river. They go out and find a lake or a river, and they have a baptism. And I'm sitting here watching these people in these robes. I'm like, shit. So I started skipping water. I started skipping rocks across the water, throwing rocks at them. My mom was like, oh my God, nigga, and grabbed me too. I was like skipping. I'm like, I was trying to get 3 or 4 skips, man. Shit, I'm a. So I started throwing rocks at these people. My mom took me on like, look, that was that was not the point of that exercise. And so, me and you have always done that kind of shit. Like, we weren't bad kids, but we damn sure were kids when we weren't supposed to be. Like, fuck it, I don't know what the hell you try to teach me here, so I'm gonna do what the fuck I do. I just know this. Like, many times that a lot of these situations that we're talking about could be avoided by somebody speaking up, and we're not making light of this woman who lost her life, but I saw a situation, and I was watching a TV show. I like watching these house flipping shows, and it's a show called Fix My Flip. It's a black lady on the show, and she's in California, and she's helping these junior flippers. So that these people are getting these properties and they're trying to flip them for money. And you keep hearing people warn you, like, if you're trying to flip a property, do not treat it like it's your house. Treat it like it's a house that you're going to sell. And these people keep doing that shit. So there's a couple, and they spent like this is California, so $1 million don't mean shit, but they spent like $1.2 million, and they bought 3 or 4 houses on this compound. It's a man and woman. I don't know what race they are, so that I guess I don't know if that's important or not. And so they had all this trouble. They've had the house for almost a year, these houses, and so she comes in and gives them advice. And she's like, "Look, you need to get rid of this contractor. This contract is taking too long. You need to get rid of this. You need to do that. You shouldn't spend that much money on this. You know, you're spending money on the mortgage when you should have sold this house already." And so she comes in, she gives them a full write up, and everything's going to work out. They can make over $300,000-400,000 and move on. The husband agrees with her, but the wife, she's like, "Nah, I want to stay with this. I don't know if it's her cousin or I'm staying with this contract. I want to do this." And so 6 months later, they come back and they've not made any progress. And first thing on my head is like, man, he's listening to his wife. I don't know what the deal is, but she's obviously giving him bad advice, and she's costing them money. But sometimes, I don't know if he's timid. I don't know if the wife is just a bigger personality, but it's obvious she didn't know anything about construction. But it don't make a difference. Whenever you let somebody make decisions that they're not authorized to make, you got to live with those results. And we got a homeboy I don't fuck with no more, but he was always going through that shit. My wife does this, my wife does that. I'm like, well, look, why don't you like tell her no? I mean, stop coming to me complaining when you drunk, when you should be telling her like, I don't agree with this decision, or y'all should be making a decision together. Man, she took all this money on my account. Like, dude, this is what you wanted to happen. You gave her authorization. You can't complain about the results. But if you really feel that way, fix that shit. All this shit can be fixed. You don't want to fix it. You want to complain. You enjoy the art of complaining. You like being the victim. And that's the whole thing, is that a lot of brothers don't recognize this shit. I get it. You might not want to argue, but some of this shit, if you don't speak up, y'all gonna have to deal with that shit. And the thing that we talked about was women are more emotional than men, blah, blah, blah. Look, you need to understand that making an emotional decision will fuck you in the long run. Many times you have the answer to your problem right there in your pocket.
Okay. Okay. So all this culminates in relationships, but the history of it goes back to Oprah, and how, these kids were coming home from school, watching this shit with their mom about all these feelings, and I feel this, and I'm liberated, blah, 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 blah. And so these women became more overbearing, wanting more control in relationships, and, more equality in relationships. And
that's all good shit.
Yeah, okay.
If done correctly.
Nigga, let me finish. And so then, you started getting relationships that were a lot more healthy, compared to ones that were in the past. Okay. More communication and all that.
Yep.
The downside of this was that women wanted to make all these decisions, and decisions that were based on things emotional, right? Because women's primary language is based around emotions, and men's primary language is based around logic. And so you have these relationships where women take the reins, and dudes, they sit in the back, and they just tolerate everything because they like the sex, or they like having a pretty woman. They consider that a win or an accessory, whatever. But then you find yourself in situations where you're on this journey, and it's guided by emotion instead of by logic, or even balanced by both of those two together. And it can be very expensive.
Costly is the word. That's some deep shit.
It's costly. And like it's these very expensive endeavors, because you're chasing all these things based off of a feeling.
Not just financial costs, but that's also emotional cost. There's other costs that are involved with this shit. Damn, man. Right. Go ahead, preach.
But the thing is that, okay, the buildings are built on logic. Nostalgia and common sense keeps them running. All right. So, but the thing is that a lot of these people in these situations, I'll give you an example. There was this guy and a woman. They're in a relationship, and a man they were out together, and a man came up to his wife or his chick while they were out, and the guy was out getting drinks, and the stranger walked up and sat down and started talking with the woman. When the fiance returned, he asked the guy, "Can I help you?" And the guy was like, "No, I was just saying hello, getting friendly." And he said, "But don't worry, I'm not gonna steal your woman, because if I wanted to, I would have." And the guy just laughed. So, okay, all that right there,
That's some deep shit. That's
all that
deep.
right there is disrespectful as shit. Okay, because at that point, where you have a device in your hand, you have a weapon of distraction, and that is the drink. So that's when you do the old 17th century French lord thing, where you just take off the glove and you slap the motherfucker. But you're not using the glove, you're using the drink. So at that point, you just take the drink, you can spill it on him, or you can just throw it in his face. Because if you just throw it in the motherfucker's face, you've done two things. You have disgraced him, and you have fucked up his clothes. So he's going to have to leave. So that's why I call that drink a device. But you have to have the cojones, the balls, the guts to do that. Because once you see that you're being disrespected by another man, that's the point of no return.
See, okay, but again, see, here's a problem when you're in a relationship. See, I had a problem when I was in a relationship because I tried to be relationship ran, and I thought that person was different. As I got older, I recognized it's the same person. So don't sit here and try to curb your personality to fit this relationship. Like, I got into it one time, and it was so I'm dating this chick, and her baby daddy is mad because I'm dating her, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you wasn't even coming around your daughter before. You just coming around now because you're more worried about the pussy than you and your daughter. I just say the shit to nigga face. So this motherfucker was leaving notes on my car and shit.
Notes.
Yeah, I'm like,
dear John.
Yeah,
I didn't like the way you talked to me.
Yeah, and so what I did was I wanted to see the chick. So I walk my dog. I go down there and knock on the door. He there. I'm like, well, I'm not here for you. I'm here for her. So let me holler at her. And so that's just how my personality is. Then later on, he would violate, and I was about to whoop his ass, and she's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Now, fast forward, I'm not dating her no more. And there was a couple times where I didn't realize how scared of me he was or how things were. And I'm like, nah, dude, I don't care. I was simply curbing my personality because I thought I needed to do that. Now, it's a different situation. And you have to recognize that, yeah, you're powerful. You got to be you, and there's no excuse for there's no excuse. You can be yourself. And I thought that I had to tone shit down no, you don't. You need to find a motherfucker that accepts you how you are. And if you're a motherfucker that kicks ass, that's what you got to do. Man, and when we were at Mardi Gras and dude touched my wife, I socked the nigga. I didn't wait. I just socked him. That's how it's supposed to be.
So I have dated many attractive ladies.
Damn right.
And when you have an attractive woman on your arm, you got to understand that the eyes
comes with baggage. It
will
comes with shit.
On you. Now,
or her. They're going to be on her.
No, they're on you because they're going to be looking at her, but then they're going to see you. So you're in that realm of influence, and they're always sizing you up. Now, the problem is they're sizing you up, but they have low tech. They don't have the Predator scanner, okay?
Yeah, they don't have the Dragon Ball scanner. They're like, oh, it's power level.
They can't see your power level. So when you're dealing with things like that with having a beautiful woman, you cannot walk around being intimidated. You cannot project weakness. Actually, you should be cool as a cucumber because she is with you because of who you are. So because of that, you can't let dudes looking at your chick make you angry unless you got line steppers. Yeah.
Yeah.
unless you got line steppers, because then you got to deal with it.
See, if he trips, she'll correct him. But then if he goes too
But
far,
you had to
then you
do
correct
that
him.
when we were in New
Yeah,
Orleans.
yeah. Then you got to correct him. So, look, here's okay.
Okay,
Women,
let's just hold on. No. Let me just go ahead and just put some more shit out there.
I'm going there.
I love the people from the state of Louisiana. They're some of the coolest, most mellow, down to earth, welcoming people that you ever come across. But motherfuckers from New Orleans, there's a large percentage of motherfuckers from there that are trash. Because they have the Baltimore issue. They have the Baltimore problem, or the Baltimore complex. The Baltimore complex is the fact that Baltimore was a slavery breeding ground, and there was a lot of incest, and so it was forced incest. So what you have is a lot of misery and residual negative
Stupidity.
spiritual energy that gets into people that are weak. And that's how the crime rate remains what it is, along with, the government not doing anything to curb it or bringing, drugs into the community. Okay, so in Louisiana, what they have is there's so much skullduggery and corruption that goes all the way back to when the French were there and they occupied that territory, and the plantations that they had, and the cruel types of brutality that they put people through. And there's always been corruption in that city of New Orleans. And so you got like this low down scumbag mentality with a lot of dudes that are from New Orleans. Because
women too.
Hold on, hang on a second. Because, and I can speak to this, and people who are live in Atlanta that were here pre-Katrina know what I'm talking about. The crime rate skyrocketed after Katrina happened in 2005, and all these motherfuckers from New Orleans came to Atlanta, and they thought they could take this motherfucker over. Well, BMF, Black Mafia family, and a lot of these motherfuckers let these New Orleans niggas know, like, hey, nah, bro, you visitors here. You know what I'm saying? Don't think you're going to come up in this motherfucker and take this motherfucker over. So my point is that there's a lot of motherfuckers from New Orleans that are trash. And me and Duct Tape were in New Orleans, Mardi Gras, shooting a music video. And we were walking through the crowd, and this dude stuck his arm out to grab Duct Tape's woman's ass. And I was in the front. I was the pathfinder. I was cutting a path through this crowd. And I look back and I saw something happen really fast, but we just kept moving. And I'm like, oh. And the funny thing about it, like in my head, I saw it happen all at once. It was like a fast break. Like you playing like basketball and like you see an opening, or you see somebody like trying to block and defend, and you sidestep and like juke a motherfucker. It was that.
You analyze the shit.
All of this was in like 0.3 seconds. It all happened that fast. And then you have like all the music and the noise and the like, melee of the crowd of like Mardi Gras. All this is happening all at one time and shit. It was like a scene out of a fucking movie. And he, like, the crazy part about it is, like, he did this shit like it was muscle memory. And I'm like, but the crazy part about it is I wasn't surprised. And I was like, yep, cool, let's go. And we just kept rolling. I think we spoke about it later. You know what I'm saying? But, like, we didn't speak about it right away. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that was the whole thing. I just giggled to myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole, the tableau. You know what I mean? Like the whole view of what was going on. It was hilarious.
But there's something you gotta understand. My previous relationship is what prepared me for this relationship. Because back then, like I told you, I would have done, if I was with the other person, I would have done that. But being with the person I'm in now, like I could be myself. And one of those.
Now, was this the chick whose name starts with an M or a G?
G.
Okay. Hold on. Did you have the same problem when you were with her? Like motherfuckers trying you?
Yeah.
And that was in Omaha.
Yeah, that was in Omaha. They weren't trying me. It's like, how do I describe it? Motherfuckers couldn't believe she was with me. Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, for real? Or
you know another thing that you perfect. Okay, there's two things when you have a beautiful woman you protect. Okay, so I did this before I was, with all these beautiful women, but like I honed it and sharpened it when I was with them. There is I project energy. I project energy forward. And so, it's it's like, no, it's like martial arts with like no hands. And you're projecting a force field outward.
You feel that shit.
And the whole time it's saying, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. You know what I'm saying? And then there's motherfuckers that think they can penetrate that. So then what you have, there's a martial art, it's called Lin Kong Jin. And this is a form of Iron Shirt Qigong, or a higher level of Tai Chi. And what it teaches you to do is project energy. But there's what they call this thing called piercing eyes. And piercing eyes is you're projecting intention through your eyes. And either people meet those eyes or they look away.
Yeah.
Mobb Deep had this song, You Shook, Scared to Look. There's no such thing as halfway crooks. And what they're talking about is piercing eyes. Either motherfuckers will see you and they nod their head, that chin up, or they look away.
Yeah. You're already intimidated. You're already forcing them. Look.
Try this when you're walking down the street. When you're walking through a parking lot. When you're walking through a mall. When you're walking through a concert venue. Pierce everything with your stare. Don't look to the right. Don't look to the left. Keep a singular view in front of you. Pierce everything in front of you with that stare. Don't break it. What you're going to develop is a cone of influence right through there. Now, if you keep doing this over time, it trains the electrons around your body to go in that direction. Remember Big Trouble in Little China, where the first time Jack Burton meets David Lopan, he runs him over with his truck, and he gets out the truck, and he turns and he looks at the back of the truck, and David Lopan stands up, and he shoots those fucking lasers out of his eyes and his mouth. That thing,
real slow. They come out slow.
Yes, but that's what I'm talking about. Because, all of these things will aid you in your interactions with other human beings. It will. Look, try this when you're at Home Depot. When you're walking, don't move to the left, don't move to the right. Keep it straight. Keep a straight line and see if anybody moves out of the way or bumps into you.
If they move out the way, they respect you. If they don't, sometimes that lets you know, like, hey, this motherfucker think I'm soft.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they need to feel your power. Sometimes you got to bump these motherfuckers. Look, what I'm saying is, like, literally, I learned how to be myself from these different relationships. Now, here's the problem. You've had a lot of women in your life. So you got some women you're having sex with, some women you're with, some, whatever. But I'm trying to tell you that I thought that when I got hit a certain age, that I made that relationship my goal, and I was going to do anything to maintain it. Then I realized I can't do anything to maintain it because what I'm doing is not being who I am.
Bingo.
I'm pissing on my own fire.
Listen, do not walk on eggshells. Do not do anything else other than be yourself.
Now, you might not know who that is, but I'm going to give an example.
I know who the fuck it is.
But many times that a lot of brothers don't recognize shit. A lot of sisters don't recognize shit. So sometimes you got to recognize shit.
But sometimes you're dating a type of chick you never been with before.
Hold it. So you said some deep shit. You said some deep shit earlier.
Hold on. But you date a chick you never been with before. Maybe she's in a different tax bracket. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she has a closet of evening gowns. If you don't know what an evening gown is, go look it up, okay? Go look it the fuck up. Basically, it's the way chicks in James Bond movies dress.
Yes.
Okay? And you go to, like, Casino Royale, and motherfuckers are not wearing fucking Timbs and jeans. No, man. No. These are adults dressing as adults with money. And then you're like, oh, this is a different level. So you recalibrate and adjust right away. Now, you may find yourself in a situation wondering, okay, do I have to do anything? Do I have to do a whole lot to keep this? Matter of fact, don't do anything to keep that. Just drink it in, enjoy it, and move on. Because if that chick is all the way 100, she gonna want to be with you regardless of whatever. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice to dress up grown and sexy, 100%. But don't put on airs. Remember,
Don't wear shit you can't fit.
that room can still be a comedy venue. Don't be intimidated by anybody in there.
Look. So being with different women, you figuring shit out, and what does this mean? Okay, women. See, something my brother said earlier. He's like, women are ruled by emotion, men are ruled by logic. Women are ruled by logic too. Their logic is different, and you gotta understand. Until you understand a woman's logic, you don't understand what the fuck she's really saying to you. That's why it's important to get this shit down and learn your mate. It may not be your mate. Just learn people. But I got 3 or 4 different situations I can tell you about when it comes to woman logic. I got a homeboy I met through somebody else. He's going through shit with his old lady. My lady used to work with his old lady, so I would hear some of the shit she was doing. And so then me and him became kind of friends. And my other homeboy was trying to give him advice because he knew him longer. I'm like, look, you need to shut that shit down. He's like, what do you mean? Like, okay, she's getting advice on your relationship from her ex. Do you understand how fucking demeaning that shit is? What do you mean? I'm like, look, so this nigga broke up with your wife because y'all married now. Broke up with your bitch, but she coming to him for advice. Do you know how big that nigga's ego is right now? Like legitimately, he's controlling your relationships. Tell that bitch don't ever come to me with that shit no more. I can't call my wife. I can fix that for you. I'll go tell her right now.
Look, man, you got Moon Knight controlling your shit from the afterlife. Okay,
it's not even cool. And so you try to explain to somebody like, I get it. So he messed around, left her. they got was getting divorced. I'm like, yeah, you grew some balls, didn't you? Because I'm like, literally, it's hard to explain to women how fucking childish men are. But I'm gonna give you an example. So I was dating this chick. So at some point in time, she dated one of our homeboys. He's a DJ, and they call him Freeze, right? You know what I'm saying? So at some point in time, she dated this dude. I'm like, and so he invites her to his wedding. I'm like, why would you go to that man's wedding? I'm like, okay. I said, I know this nigga. I grew up with this nigga. We used to like swap clothes and play basketball. I know he didn't invite me. Now, true enough, he doesn't know how to get in touch with me, but he's only inviting you to make himself feel better. Now, I'm like, look, stop being stupid. So let me explain this to you. So I got to explain this to this woman, like what's really being done. I said, this dude is getting married to a chick he chose. He's inviting all these bitches he used to fuck, and he's going to look back at that audience and just have the biggest ego trip. Like literally, he's flaunting the fact I didn't choose you, but I can fuck any one of y'all in this audience. Do you understand how powerful?
But here's the thing, though. This is where the woman's emotion/logic system comes in.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to show up and I'm not going to be intimidated, and I'm not going to let this get into my head, and I'm going to go there and show my support and show them that I'm not affected. Not realizing that you are being baited. This entire thing is a setup, and you don't realize it's a fucking setup. And
he's rubbing it in your face.
Do not engage. Do not engage. Break off. Listen.
Yeah, you're not marriage worthy. I didn't choose you, bitch. You know.
Right.
But
that's the whole thing. Is like, if you show up, then you are a pawn, whether you realize it or not. And that's the whole thing. Is like your defiance. Your greatest show of defiance is by not going.
Look, hey, I'm gonna give you another situation. So, same chick, and so she messed with a dude that went to school with you. Me and this dude got tight at one point. You don't care for this dude. So, at some point in time, I'm recognizing like, hey, I asked her, did y'all used to mess around? Oh no, we didn't mess around. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm seeing some shit, and so he kept trying to give me advice on my girl, and I'm like, man, she don't like porn. She's a straight shooter. She is. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, she don't like. I'm like, yes, she does. No, she doesn't. I'm like, look, when she's sucking my dick, I'm watching porn, so she can watch it if she wants or not. Or when I'm hitting it from the back, I got the porn on the screen. Like, oh, for real? So I'm like, why are you so worried about my relationship? Let me know. They must have messed around at some point. So again, another situation arises where I'm 100% sure. And so I ask her. So me and homeboy went to the club, right? And old girl had a key to my place because I gave her a key to my place. And so he's like, "Hey, I'm so drunk, I can't go home. Duct tape, I can't go home. I'm so drunk." So I'm like, okay, shit, come to my
You know
crib.
you
And so
plotting, motherfucker.
yeah,
If
exactly.
you don't get your
So
vicarious ass the fuck up out of here.
so so I go to my crib. I'm like, look, my girl's at the house. She calling. There must be something wrong. So we leave the club and we're gonna go to another club afterwards. So we leave the club, we go to my house and she's there going off. I'm like, so I'm trying to help him up the steps. I'm like, I just do so. I, I don't remember you drinking this much. So I sit him on my couch and she stomps upstairs. So I go upstairs and she starts going off on me. And I'm like,
Why would you bring him here?
yeah, no, oh, no. She's going off on me. Where have I been? Who am I with? Like, yada, yada. Because again, they had messed around in the past. I wasn't fully aware of that. She also knows this nigga is he's a cheater. So she's mad I'm hanging out with him. She's like, you must be cheating. So she's going off, raising her voice. I'm just standing there. So I bend her over the bed, pull her underwear down. I start fucking her right there, like just start fucking her. Like, hey, this is all you want, right? So I fucked the dog shit out of her, and she like, okay, I'm cool. She literally puts her clothes back on, goes down, like, hey, have a good day, y'all, and she's chilling. And all of a sudden, he's not drunk anymore. He's like, hey, what happened? I just heard her yelling, cussing at you. I'm like, oh no, shit, I fucked her. I'm like, look, that's all she wanted, nigga. Shit. I knew what she wanted. She wasn't going to communicate that. She wasn't going to ask me to stop doing what the fuck I was doing just to come and have sex with her.
Okay.
But
Listen. Women won't tell you most of the time that they need it. They want you to just read it and do it because it's such a natural thing.
Yeah,
and it's
her
like
tantrum wasn't that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I shouldn't have to tell you to brush your teeth. You know to brush your teeth
twice a day.
So the same applies for sexual language between a man and a woman. I shouldn't tell you to do something that you know to do as a reflex. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm passing you the ball, catch it.
Look, but see, this is women speak since they speak through emotion, they don't always speak through their actual logical mind.
They send telepathic messages all the time, and they think their perception is that we're that dog that refuses to play catch.
Everybody needs therapy, and everybody's a victim, and everybody, man.
You need to heal more than you do
about healing.
Therapy. All right. So look, that brings us full circle. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Hey, holla back, y'all.